5 o'clock this evening with a walkthrough through the buildings. And now we're back here for the regular order of business. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to welcome you all to the August 23rd, 2021 meeting of the North Brookfield School Committee. This meeting is being recorded by the North Brookfield LPAC. If there is anyone present who is recording this meeting, please raise your hand so others are aware. Recognition, I don't have anything under recognition. Do you, Mr.?
No, I just want to thank Mr. Shaw and his staff for the hard work trying to get the buildings open. The weather's been really tough in terms of the humidity to get things, the floors in particular, and they've worked amazingly hard and really heat and humidity, so I want to thank them.
So on behalf of the school committee and the people of North Brookville, I agree with that. I think we really owe you a thank you, but also to the administrators who have worked very hard over the summer to try to make the entry into school this coming fall as seamless as possible based off of everything that we went through, or they went through last year, so thank you. Student Advisory Council, student representative is Joe Day. She's not here yet, but we started just, I think he's walking in right now. Come on, Joe.
Joe, no pressure. There it is, look at this one.
Hi, Joe.
He's awesome.
You're
Hi,
next
Joe.
to me.
Have a seat, my friend. We'll come back to you. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting, regular meeting of June 14th, July 8th, the executive session of July 8th, the special meeting of August 3rd, and the executive session of August 3rd?
I'll move to approve those minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any questions or discussions? Yes, sir.
I did not attend the first three of them, so I'd like to abstain from
Okay.
voting on the minutes.
I'll be with the same.
If there's no other discussion or question, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Joe, we're up to Student Advisory Council. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us?
Mainly the minutes. School hasn't been up too much lately except for 7th grade orientation.
Okay.
Nice and loud, bud, okay?
Yeah.
First time. So throughout the summer, Student Council has been focusing on 7th grade orientation, which is taking place at the high school this Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. This time will be used to distribute Chromebooks, schedules, and for a tour of the school, and some fun workshops led by the Student Council members to get the 7th graders ready for the new school year. We're also looking forward to set new goals for the school, like increasing our support for both students and teachers, to raise school spirit and unity, and boost our community outreach. We're all really excited for the new school year.
Okay. As the student council representative, it's my understanding that you have as much input as the rest of this board does. So if there's a question or a concern that you have while this board participates in its business, certainly feel free to raise your hand and participate, okay? Thank you. Correspondence, we have a letter from the Board of Health with their guidance and recommendations with regard to the upcoming school year, and I think we're going to be talking about the upcoming school year and what we plan to do at that point, so we're going to hold off on, we're not going to read the whole thing. If you want to read it, I'm sure it's available to you, but we're not going to read the whole thing. Are there any presentations, Mr. Lynn?
There are none.
Do we have public participation? So there was a flyer out and available for you as you walked in to explain how public participation happens with regard to this meeting. Is there any public participation that needs to take place? Moving on to school committee reports. There is no school committee report that I'm aware of. Is there financial reports that you care to share with us, Mr. Lynn?
Do. So the first piece is the usual listing of line items and revolving and grant accounts. The town accountant is working with the staff in my office to make those available. There's been a challenge with the rollover with the company. We'll be meeting with the company tomorrow. Mrs. LeBlanc, the town accountant, has been intimately involved in working with, sometimes yelling at the iVisions people from Tyler Technologies to ensure that the rollover from 21 to 22 happens appropriately. There's been some glitches with that. It is not something that we can fix here. It's something they have to fix, and they have yet to do that. And Tyler Technologies is a town-run thing, so it's the financial system that the whole town uses, and as a department of the town, we use it as well. But it's impossible to get you a list because it would essentially say there's no money in any of the accounts at this point. That's not accurate, but the system hasn't been rolled over properly. So they are working. I believe they have tomorrow a meeting with Tyler Technologies to move that forward. So we'll be able to provide you a line item listing and the grant and revolving account list that we've been able to provide in the past.
So it's your expectation by the next meeting we'll have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Summer warrants?
Summer warrants, so in your packet were the warrants that were processed over the course of the summer. They're both payroll and vendor warrants. They're very, I guess, vanilla, because the summer is a much slower time in terms of ordering materials or vendors. And certainly for our payroll, it's also a little bit slower. We do have some summer salaries in there, as staff can select 26 pay periods. So there's nothing outrageous in these. They're very typical warrants in terms of what is on there. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any as you've reviewed these summer warrants. I also put next to your packet the warrants that are for tonight. They were in separate printed out packets. There are, again, a vendor warrant and a payroll warrant. Again, much smaller than you'll see as the school year gets started, because there's really very few staff on these warrants, because they're not back yet, the majority. The third warrant that you have, a vendor warrant, is to UMass Medical. So UMass Medical runs our Medicaid program. Schools schools participate in the federal program for Medicaid. We have staff that sometimes offer essentially medical service to students, and Medicaid reimburses us for those, for that time. And UMass is a provider that actually is a third party that actually helps us do that. They're called random moment in time studies, where they check various staff and see what they're doing with kids to see if it's reimbursable from Medicaid. UMass actually processes all that and submits it to the federal government, and they take a small cut, for lack of a better way to say. You can see a $24 warrant to them. This is a separate warrant because it's budgeted separately outside of our school budget. It's budgeted as its own line item in the town. So the town receives all the proceeds from this. It does not come back to the school department directly. It goes into the town's revenues. We usually collect somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 through the Medicaid program during the course of the year. So, and quarterly it gets paid out. So you see those occasionally come through with a request for a warrant to UMass. It just doesn't happen often, so it's one of those things you look at and go. And this one's so small because it happened over the summer, and there was a much smaller payout because we had a much less number of kids here over the summer. So those are the warrants that are actually in the blue binder that need to be signed tonight by two school committee members.
So as
Questions?
Mr. Lynn just mentioned, that it requires a signature of two school committee members and the superintendent. And I know that this is not marked as a item that requires a vote, but I would like a vote of this committee to say that they've seen the warrants and approve of those warrants. So can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the summer warrants.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Budget adjustment plan, Mr.
Yes.
Lynn, please?
So one of the things that I wanted to present to the committee was the idea of adjusting our budget because our structures have changed. We've moved to a high school principal, we have different roles available, and I think it's important that the committee be aware and approve of a plan to adjust some of the funding mechanisms, because the way it was budgeted, we had an assistant superintendent, we had co-principal stipends, and we need to adjust some of that. So in your packet, I provided you a memo with some brief description of what I'm proposing, as well as a spreadsheet that sort of outlines the budget adjustment plan. And essentially, what we have between the curriculum coordinator or assistant superintendent, the co-principal stipend, and the central office assistant salary is about $163,000. What I'm proposing is to reallocate that money to cover the expenses that we currently have based on the structures that that exist. We have an interim principal, we have a central office assistant, and then we have some expenditures that I'd like to present to you tonight. First is, one of the challenges of not having a curriculum coordinator or assistant superintendent is the responsibility of district-wide professional development and managing and taking care of our federal title grants. Title I, Title IIA, Title IV. That's a big hole, because those are big jobs to manage. I'm proposing a stipend to offer to a present employee to help coordinate and manage those. Mrs. Priestley is our elementary principal. She's been in the role now for her third year. Her school is actually the Title I school, so in a lot of ways it makes sense. And she has been intimately involved in planning the professional learning over her 2 years as the principal, but beyond that as a teacher leader for, I think, 9 other years that she's been here in district. Central office assistant, Mary Beth Kolarski served in that role. She took on the interim business HR assistant role for the end of last year after Mrs. LeBlanc moved to the town position of town accountant. The salary for that position originally was $20,000. I'm proposing to raise it up to $24,600. It's more commensurate with Ms. Kolarski's level of experience and expertise within our systems, from our iVision system to really across the board: payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, use of facilities, HR practices, everything. So more commensurate with her level of expertise. We do have a new business HR assistant, and we need to get her training on the iVision system. So that's a $1,900 training over several days to get her up to speed to be able to do everything she needs to do. Right now, she's counting on Ms. Kolarski and Mrs. LeBlanc when they can help her. But it's just not enough for her to get into the system and really understand with the experts. We have a huge end-of-the-year report due through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It is something that Mrs. LeBlanc did and struggled through after 7 years in the role. I think if we try to ask Mrs. Thacker to do it by the October 1st date that it's due, we will send her over the edge because it will be impossible. Mrs. LeBlanc was unable to complete it by October 1st and several times, and we had to ask DESE for an extension, and Sheila had done it for 7 years. So it's a huge report, it's very challenging. So I've reached out to a consultant who provides this kind of work. And then lastly, as you know, we've hired a new student services director, Ms. Roberts. And one of the things that we really want to do is provide her, as a new director, a mentor for the year. And I've reached out to a neighboring district who has a veteran student services director communicated with their superintendent, who was very supportive of providing that. And we would contract with the student services director in that other district to provide mentoring a couple of times a month with obviously regular phone calls and emails. The neat thing about that is that Ms. Robert already has a pre-existing relationship with this person, knows her from her past. So one of the important parts of this is that the building the knowledge and the rapport with this person is already in place. So I know Anna has already reached out to her several times before I even mentioned the name. And this person has been so helpful to her. But I would like to make it more formal to ensure that she has everything she needs to be successful.
So without the line items mentioned to make the adjustments, I don't think we can have a vote on it. I think we're fine. I mean, you get to do that. I don't think there's an issue. But at the next meeting, I think we need to have the line items transfers so that we can approve the transfers of the line items.
Yep.
Unless somebody else on the board thinks something different. Does that make sense to everybody? Right?
So I'll include that in the
So I think
financial.
the board is fine with you making those changes, but we need the approval to do
Yep.
the line item transfers.
Okay.
Okay? Superintendent's report?
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep it really brief. I also, in your additional packet that I provided, was an updated on hiring. There are several positions from the original that have been filled since I sent this on, I think it was last Thursday. There are a couple of more that are in red that are in process. They haven't signed finally, but we're in process. We've had quite a bit of turnover, more than I've ever seen. I've done this for a long time as a principal and as a superintendent. And these things come and go in cycles, and whether it's just timing or whatever else, we did have a large number of folks decide to move on. We've filled the majority of our positions. I will tell you there are a couple that I'm very concerned about. One is a school psychologist. We've had this posted since mid-June. We got one resume of someone in Connecticut who isn't really appropriate for the job. We have started to reach out to agencies that contract for this kind of thing, because it is a super important position as we get referrals to provide testing, the academic, social, emotional testing for students, and report writing that no one else can do. This is you have to be a school psychologist to be able to do that. We will continue to look for a school psychologist, but we may need to contract with a company, which is not our preferred method. I prefer to have someone on staff who's ours, who works for us, not for an agency. There are some benefits from the agency. The idea that they cover all the costs in terms of employee benefits, which is a wonderful benefit, but what we lose is that, I don't know, personal connection to our community, because it's a contracted situation. They work for another company. But we have to have someone in place. When we start to get referrals, we had referrals from the end of last year, so testing needs to start really pretty much when school gets back. So I'm very concerned about that. And the other is an ELL tutor. We have a very small number of kids who require English language learner services, but these are required services. We only need about 10 hours a week based on the number of kids that we have spread out over 5 days. But we're not alone in this. There's a lot of districts like us, smaller districts, that don't have the need for full-time staff. We only need 2 hours a day, that struggle to find someone to provide these services. Ms. Robert has reached out to other districts about ELL folks, and has heard what I just reported to you, that they're all having trouble. We'll communicate with DESE and see if they have any suggestions for us, but we'll continue to look. The those are the two positions that I'm worried most about because they are so specialized and difficult to find. And given our size for the ELL, it's really hard to find someone for 2 hours a day. And the school psychologist, again, we're out of time, we're gonna move forward, probably will end up moving forward with contracted services, which is not my preferred way to go, but at this point, we really need to look at potentially making sure that we have someone in place that can do that educational testing and report writing and reporting within meetings. Any questions about the hiring update?
Is it more expensive to go out to one of those service companies than to hire somebody?
It will be more expensive probably on a salary line than it will, but if you look at total cost, things like benefits, you know, the town pays thousands of dollars for benefits at about 70%. So there would be savings on the town side on the benefits piece, but it is more expensive. We do have some options within our grants to be able to supplement that. Some other grants have come out through the Department of Education and the American Recovery Plan. So we have, it's about $65,000 budgeted for the salary. We're looking at between $70,000 and $75,000 for contracted services, just in salary.
The ELL tutor, is that, so for a 10-hour-a-week position, we're talking about someone who I'm assuming has certain certifications that the state needs to approve. Is there any way of doing that via like a work study thing with a college, or are there people at that level that might be able to?
We may have to look in that direction. You know, we would have to get a waiver from the state to be able to have someone who's not certified and maybe working towards it. But again, it's one of those things that just finding someone in the area who's going into that field, it's just a very, I mean, everywhere it's hard to find. You know, places like Worcester, they hire, you know, I don't know, 10, 20 ELL teachers. We need literally a 0.3 of a full-time equivalent position, which is about 10 hours. So, yeah, we can reach out, and we will, to a variety of folks to see if we can find someone, but really challenging position to fill.
Okay. Any other questions for the superintendent with regard to hiring? Mr. Superintendent, the school opening update?
Yep. So in your packet is also a quick memo that covers in bullet point form some important things. I guess what I'll start with is over the next couple of days, Wednesday and Thursday, not tomorrow, but Wednesday and Thursday, the district will welcome all of our new teachers for new teacher orientation. 2 days, full days of getting people inducted. We'll have a variety of trainings, get them hooked up on technology, connect with their mentors, really get up and running so when the staff comes back on the 30th, they're already able to communicate and they have an understanding of where they're going and sort of how to get there and who to ask the questions to that they will have. Really important days, very fun days to meet our new staff coming in. Joe mentioned it, that we have our grade 7 orientation on Friday, 9 to 12. Student council, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Snyder, some of our middle school teachers will be working with our 7th graders in kind of a group model. You know, Group A goes through several stations, and each group will go through and have a chance to tour the building, figure out how to open lockers, which is always a challenge for the incoming kids. Tour the building, those kinds of things. We'll have some pizza for lunch in the afternoon or late morning, and then send them on their way so that they can, again, walk in that first day and feel a little more comfortable. Mrs. Priestley and her preschool staff will be hosting a pre-K orientation on September 1st. Very much the same thing, but probably more for the parents to get comfortable with their children, 3 and 4-year-olds going to pre-K. The kids get introduced to the staff in the room, which is really helpful as they come in to sort of It's not the first time, but I think for parents to see the program and understand how it works would be really helpful. We've posted our bus routes. I would remind parents, it gives you the starting time. Try to be there early, because we don't know how quickly the buses will go. The first couple of days are usually a little choppy with the drivers, with the kids, and getting here. And same buses do the junior, senior high route, and then do the elementary, so hopefully they don't get behind. But, you know, be patient. If you have any questions, feel free to call the bus company and/or the school, and we can help you with any questions, concerns that you have. It's always a challenge, bus routes. Drop-off and pickup will remain the same as last year. Parents at the elementary school will be using the lane here on the side of the school. Parents at the junior, senior high will be dropping off at the front door for the high school kids, and the middle school door for the middle school students.
We're gonna have one change, Mr. Lynn, we're only gonna have one parent drop-off and pickup point. Last year, we had 3. We had 2 in the Bell area and 1 down in the kindergarten area. We're just gonna have 1 this year,
So it's right up here.
it'll be just
Yeah.
right here, yeah, just this first. the
Buses
last
will
one,
drop
like-
off in this building at the front, and at the junior, senior high at the back at the cafeteria. That worked really well for traffic flow last year. So, and again, our principals and myself will be sending out updates with information related to drop-off, pickup, first day, and all that. I mentioned the staff days on the 30th and the 31st. We'll have all our staff back for 2 full days. Fabulous time to sort of, from training to meetings to getting reacquainted, meeting the new folks, reconnecting with people that you haven't seen. We will spend 2 full days getting things up and running and ready for kids, which will happen on September 1st. Kids are back. Summer is coming to an end quickly. So I did
Just
send
ruined a lot
out.
of kids' ideas right now.
I know, I hate to, but parents are all smiling. So on the first day is actually first grade through grade 12. The first several days for kindergarten are screenings. That's my error, I should have included that. Kindergarten screenings, the staff have communicated with parents or will communicate with students about screening time for kindergartners. Our preschool students start on the September 2nd. Our kindergarten students actually start a regular school day on September 7th.
Correct. And there is an orientation for all the kindergartners on that Friday.
Thank you. So those are just some quick highlights. A lot happening in a short amount of time.
Sounds good. Anybody have any questions for the superintendent? Then we move on to administrators report, middle and high school principal.
Okay, thank you very much. Tim McCormick, I met the school committee this evening, actually for the first time, so I appreciate the welcome and welcome to all of you. I've been on the job now for a week and getting to know some students. Hi Joe, nice job with the report. Some teachers and some parents, and we are excited to get back. And to be very brief in my first report, you may have noticed if you're at the high school or junior high school parents, I'll be sending out a weekly memo using the app some more. Something I've used the last couple of years. It's just a very easy, user-friendly way to communicate with parents, with students and staff about what's going on. So I plan on doing that throughout the course of the year on Sunday evenings to let all of you know what's going on at high school and junior high school. As Joe mentioned, this coming Friday, the 27th, from 9 to 12 is our 7th grade orientation for our students. As Mr. Lynn mentioned, they'll be touring the school, learning how to use a locker, talking to our athletic director, meeting with myself, and some other teachers who may be in the building. Just want the students to feel welcome before we start on the 1st. Fall sports did officially start today, but everything was pushed back till tomorrow because of the weather. So we'll hopefully get on the field tomorrow with soccer and field hockey and cross country starting tomorrow. And then lastly, I'm just very excited to be here. I look forward to meeting families, students, and parents, and getting the school year started. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Elementary school principal?
Yes, so I had 2 things prepared to share with you, but we kind of talked about kindergarten already with the screenings that are coming and the orientation, and there'll be a popsicle with me on that Friday. I'm really excited to meet our new kindergartners. The other big event that we're preparing for is our back to school night. So, you know, not 100% certain what that's going to look like, given this kind of fluid situation with what we'll be allowed to do. Hopefully we'll be able to have an in-person event. I would love that. That's the night of we have the book fair that week, and we usually have the PTO does a cakewalk raffle. It's a lot of fun. It's a really fun event, and I would be so excited if we can have it. So we're making preparations, and hopefully we'll be reaching out to all our community partners to attend. We've had the bank there, we've had Scouts, the Rainbow Girls, a lot of other agencies that come. The fire department's always there, so really looking forward to planning that.
My wife's just interested in the cakewalk, that's all she said.
Who isn't, right?
Those cakes are so great.
They are so good.
They're so cool.
She said cakewalk, I'm in, that's what she said to me, I don't know.
I just heard
Directors-
cake.
Ms. Robert, your Director of Student Services, report,
Yes.
please.
Good evening. So I have spent the past couple of weeks getting to know a lot of staff that have been in the building, and some parents that have come in, existing, and also some new parents that are enrolling students, so that's been very nice. I've also been working on also developing a system where I communicate with families regularly. We have the Facebook page for the North Brookfield Public Schools Student Services, so I am trying to make that active and post regularly on there, and also to provide weekly updates through our website, just to make sure that there is communication with parents. I've also been very busy trying to familiarize myself with the grants that are available to us to try to allocate some needed services for special education. So that has been a primary focus, in addition to trying to secure some personnel staff that Mr. Lind has mentioned. And lastly, I am also working on trying to get the sped pack going for this year.
Great, thank you. Mr. Shaw, you have the facilities report?
So I'll be brief. The weather has been my summer nemesis, but we're pretty much ready. Final coats of wax hopefully will be dry tomorrow morning down in the high school basement area. So that should be, so we get you back up and running full tilt. Now would be time to, hopefully Mother Nature will be nice to us and I can get to the grounds work with some staff, and getting the athletic fields lined and ready and going. Our final, got most of our testing done for the different fire systems and so forth, the elevator. And I've got our final walkthrough with the building inspector and fire department now scheduled this morning for this Thursday. So we should be ready to go for September 1st.
Great, thank you. So under old business, we have the school committee subcommittee assignments. We have, for the negotiation subcommittee, we have Tim and Matt, who are going to serve on that committee. Under policy, we have Christy and Chris. Under curriculum, we have Christy and Chris as well. And under facilities, we have Tim and Matt, and I apologize, I didn't use last names, but let me do that again. Mr. Canada and Mr. Grant, Mrs. Omasta and Ms. Hickman, Mr. Omasta and Ms. Hickman for the curriculum, and Mr. Canada and Mr. Grant. Did I do that wrong?
Did you say Miss Hickman?
Well, yeah, you know, whatever, so it's all fine, good. Listen, you can't have a little fun at the school committee meeting. Where can you have fun, okay? We're in the elementary school, we're supposed to
I
have
have
a
a
little bit of
list
fun.
going here, actually.
I know, so those are the committee assignments. There's an asterisk there, which seems to mean that we need a vote for that, but I don't believe we do we? Mr. Lind, I don't believe we do.
I don't think we do. I
Those are
think they
appointments,
probably
right?
put it on there by in error.
So, before we move past that, since Mr. Shaw is here, one of the things I would like to see the facilities and grounds group do, just for me personally, it'd be really nice if we could organize the townspeople, and maybe we could do something with this bead of rubbish that's between where the bus used to go and where the people used to drive. I don't know. It just looks to me like when you pull in, that's like an abandoned piece of property that somebody really needs to deal with. I'm not suggesting your staff. I'm not. I swear to you, I'm not, because I know that, I was up here the other day and I'm watching them like weed whacking between the bushes, and I'm thinking, why do we even have bushes there? We should pull them out so they don't have to deal with that, so they can just mow. No, seriously, because the amount of time that it takes them to weed whack in between the bushes, I'm thinking to myself, that was time better spent doing something else, right? Just my, but there's an aesthetic
Asphalt
pleasure.
comes to mind.
No, stop it. So there's an aesthetic pleasure to having the bushes out there, and I get that, right? So there's a good thing. But there's a lot of community members in this town in particular who are gardeners, who are, or you know, who would love,
I welcome the help.
right? So maybe that committee could work with you, and maybe we could reach out to the townspeople and make this a public space that the
It
townspeople.
usually looks a lot better. We were a little short, and like I said, the weather just.
Please, Mr. Shaw, I'm not, I swear to you, I'm not singling you out. I drove down here the other day and I was thinking to myself, what can we do with that space, right? So there's something we can do, and there's a lot of townspeople who would love to be involved up here. So maybe we can get them involved and do something to plant up here, whether it's vegetables or just flowers. I mean, flowers would be beautiful, but I mean, even if we planted some vegetables up here in this little strip, so that our elementary school kids could see the value of being a farmer in this town or whatever. I don't know. I'm just thinking outside, saying we could do something there. So, so I'll leave that to the committee. I impose my 2 cents.
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you guys that are here didn't get to go on the walkthrough with us, but down the hall, there's a new teacher who is in her new classroom, and she's been here all day painting the classroom.
Yep,
Because
absolutely.
she wanted a brighter color, so she has been here for 2 days painting her classroom. And it's so bright and vibrant, it's really nice.
On her own.
And
Absolutely on her
she's
own,
just
yeah.
doing it on her own, it's her thing, she wanted to do that for the kids, and I think that's something we don't notice, because we just walk into the building and usually just see it already painted, or you see the colors and stuff, and I mean, that room it's like the sun's shining in there, and it's a cloudy, miserable day, and she really has been there for hours and hours painting, and I think that's something I commend her for. I forgot her name, I'm sorry, but.
Cindy Juritsma.
Okay.
Cindy,
is
yeah.
new.
Cindy Juritsma,
And
so
she's one of many of our teachers who have painted their classrooms in the last few years.
Of course,
They-
sure.
But we
have
caught
a-
her in the act,
You
so.
did, you did. Most teachers won't share that they've done it, but their rooms look amazing, so.
Right.
Caught her yellow-handed.
Yes.
Yellow-handed, yes. So thank you. After-school care follow-up discussion. This is something brought forward by
Me, it's me.
Cindy, yes. I mean, Cindy, Jesus, Christy, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm
So
Christy.
Hi, I'm
No,
Matt.
it's
Nice to
all right.
meet you.
Hi, see, we're
Nice to
having
meet you.
fun.
This is Omasta. Sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
So there was a conversation about after-school care, specifically on half-days. And I know Mr. Lind was talking about that with you and with us. And Mr. Lind, do you have more information to share with us?
Yeah,
or-
so we ran a survey. We asked parents, really 3 questions. It was pretty simple. When did your child attend? And we had 67 responses as of Thursday afternoon. And a little under half reported that they do make use of the after-school program out of those 67. My guess is a lot of people who participate in the program answered it, and some who don't ignored it. And another 25% of those said, I don't make use of it regularly, but sometimes, I might use it occasionally. So out of the 67, about 3/4 said that they do make use of that program. And then I asked them, the district has 4 early release professional development days, including October 7th, November 10th, January 14th, and March 15th. On those, usually in the past, kids have dismissed at 11:30 from this school and gone home because there's no after-school care. And Mrs. Omasta wanted to see if there might be some interest in parents who might make use of childcare on those early dismissal days, starting at 11:30 and going until the typical 5 o'clock time. So out of the 67 responses, about 43% of the 67 people, that translates to about 35, out of the 67 said that they would be interested in having their child participate in those childcare. And another almost 20% said they might, depends on the day and what's happening in their families' lives. So again, that's another 15 out of the 70 or so respondents. So there was some interest in that possibly happening. And then I just wanted to get a sense of the total number of kids. And the majority of people who answered only have one student, and another 38% had 2 kids that they were talking for. So this is respondents, but it's not necessarily children. It might be more than that. And a very small number that had 3, 4, or 5 kids who went to this school who might make use of that. So it was just to gain an idea of the interest level, and I did include in your packet sort of all the information of how people answered. So there is interest. I think the challenge now, as we started to brainstorm last time, is the staffing of that program, because those are professional development days when the people who usually work in the after-school program are working for the district and attending professional learning time. And how could we make use of maybe other folks to be able to provide that after-school care on those 4 professional development days, which, again, as Mrs. Onasta has shared, can be really challenging for parents who work. So
I apologize, but I'm taking it from the tone of what you're saying, that you don't think you can get this in place for the October half-day?
I don't know about October. I mean, I think we can try. I think what I would do is probably piggyback on what you just said about the facilities. There are people in town who might be willing
Absolutely.
to work in the after-school program, maybe not regularly every day, but maybe
talking
they
4
would want
days.
to come occasionally. Maybe we could tap into our student council or our National Honor Society to help out with some of the younger students on those professional development days. As mentioned in the last meeting, there are kids who have, high school kids who have requirements for community service hours. So is it possible? Yes. Is it going to be a challenge? Yes. But I think it can be done. I think Mr. Chair Joe had some comments.
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't want to speak for the entire student council, but that I feel like if we had enough people, that could be something we could arrange. But again, I don't know how they feel about it, because we haven't met with the entire group in a while.
Is that something you could potentially bring to them, that we're looking for some assistance on the professional half-days, the professional development
Yeah,
half-days?
I think I could do that. I would just need to, like, a certain number to
Sure.
say for sure.
You and I can talk, and I can get you the info, so you can go talk to
And it would
Ms.
be
Malone.
likely until 2:30, because then our regular staff could potentially take over.
That's true too, I didn't even think of it that way. It would be 11:30 to 2:30, because then our staff, who would be in professional learning till 2:30, are now free.
So what I just heard was challenge accepted. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's, I think.
Joe's got this.
You guys got this, right? The 2 of you, right?
Joe and I will take
Joe's,
care of it.
Joe's eyes just went like this.
Joe and I will take care of it.
Okay.
All right, well, look.
Quick question?
Sure, absolutely.
If someone wants to volunteer for this, who should they reach out to at the school reach out directly to you, Mrs. Priestley? Okay. So, if anyone's interested in volunteering their time, please reach out to Mrs. Priestley and let her know. And she can direct you on what you need to do to get your name in the mix. Because I think we do need some adults.
Basically only 12 hours for the whole year.
Right. Right, so, awesome. Really appreciate that, thank you very much. Okay, policy, there are no policies to review today. Approval of Valley View curriculum. I'll accept a motion to approve the curriculum.
I'll move to approve the Valley View curriculum.
Second? Second. I know there were questions. Anybody else, any questions? I know there was questions about, I think there were 3, somebody mentioned that there were 3 new courses. 3
I
new
just like the
courses?
sound of them, that was all. It wasn't really a question. It was-
Well, so I thought that we were gonna get, I apologize, Mr. Lind is the representative here?
He's not.
Okay, so my understanding was we were going to get a document that said, these are the changes between this year and last year, and I don't believe we got that, so, you have that, okay, I didn't see that.
That wasn't in your packet?
It's right here.
That was in there. So
Oh,
there-
it's in the packet, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
In there, it just said no change, and then there was
Right.
3 separate courses that said
Okay.
one course.
No,
Okay,
the
I
electives.
apologize.
And
Three-
so
there's
then
3
within the
electives.
Google Drive folder of the Valley View curriculum was the entire curriculum. It's a big document, so I
Yep, I
didn't
saw
wanna
that.
just print off 10,000 more pages for you. So those curriculums are in there. I did sit down with Mr. Moran, who's new, and Mr. May, who used to be in this position and now has moved up to an more executive director type of position. I don't know his exact title.
So
and
I apologize,
reviewed
because when
these.
I was reviewing it, I did not see the new, I see him now on the document that's presented in front of me, but I did not see it when I was going through the list, so I apologize, that's my miss. But, are there any questions from the committee? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Student handbook approval, junior, senior high school. We
So-
received the junior, senior high school packet, or the handbook in the packet. Is there anything still in?
The only changes that we made to this year's was we removed a lot of the information that was directly related to the pandemic and some of the challenges that created last year, and updated names and dates. For those of you who did get back to myself and Mr. McCormick with any things that you found, the more eyes, the better. Because these are huge documents that are really hard to manage. We spent, Mrs. Priestley, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that we unified the handbooks?
Yeah,
We
that's
spent a
true.
lot of time unifying
Yep,
them.
you can tell
All
that,
of
yeah.
all of the policies are updated, ensuring that they follow a similar pathway, even though they're 2 different schools because of the age group. We tried to kind of unify them a little bit, and they're really in great shape now. Really proud of the work that the folks who worked on these did. So we're in pretty good shape, and like I said, the only changes were we removed a lot of the pandemic-related policies that were in place for last year, and updated names and dates and those kinds of things.
So can I get a motion to approve the high school, junior, senior high school handbook?
I'll move to approve the junior, senior high school handbook.
A second?
I second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
On a motion to accept the elementary school handbook?
I'll move to accept the elementary school handbook.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, moving on. Fall opening guidelines. So we sent out a survey to the staff, we sent out a survey to the parents, and it's been out on social media for everybody in the world to see. We all know that the Department of Education Director has requested authority from his board to mandate that students be required to wear masks, students and staff be required to wear masks for the beginning of the school year, and has restrictions about when those mask limitations can be lifted. However, as of August 23rd, the decision is still the decision of the school committee. So at this point, I would look to the school committee members to see if there's a motion as to how we're going to proceed. Mr. Hickman?
I had a little write-up thing, because I didn't want to miss anything, but I feel like it's our responsibility to let not let our own individual opinions override the opinions of the people that we are here to represent. And I think that based on the survey, there's a majority that would like to have it be their choice. So I'll keep this short. I make a motion to leave the decision up to the parents for the masking policy for this year.
So parents and staff, I'm assuming?
Yes. Sorry.
So-
I make a motion that we leave the decision on the masking policy to the parents of the children and the staff of the school on whether or not they wear them.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I second, we both second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have some discussion.
Feel free, Mr. Gannon.
I think it is a majority that voted, and but it was not a huge majority. It was not, 80% to nothing. There's a lot of concerned parents that I've heard from who would prefer masking. And I think another way that I look at it personally, because I have a lot of time in the car to think about these things, is when it's optional and kids are in the school, if a child's parent has them wear a mask and the children around them are not wearing a mask, I worry about the risk of bullying or treating each other differently based on whether or not they're wearing a mask. Whereas if we as the school committee mandated and again, it might all change tomorrow with the state, but I think that as the school committee, it's a chance for us to say, okay, you're all going to wear a mask, and if you want to be mad at someone, you can be mad at us, the school committee, and not be mad at your friend who was wearing a mask or mad at your friend who was not wearing a mask because your parents made you wear a mask. I think it's kind of an equalizer thing, and I feel like that's an important thing, and there are a lot of parents who are still concerned about this. And I also, when I look at last year's, not 3 days after we had our first week of full school, so 3 days into the whole school being occupied, there was a child who tested positive. And because they were all masked, it became a very small issue. And I feel that in a situation where the kids are in large part unmasked, and granted the town does not have any cases right now that I've seen on the recent reports, but I feel like it becomes a bigger issue if the group is primarily unmasked. And then we're talking more about whether we need to shut the school down or something like that, if it's a bigger deal.
So my understanding is, based on the information that was provided to us through the superintendent, Massachusetts Association School Committee, and thank you, I'm sorry, should have started with that, thank you. Because it's a very important decision. It's not a decision that's taken lightly by anybody that's sitting on this committee, I can guarantee you that. But my understanding is that there's a process in place for, in the event that somebody does test positive, whether they're wearing a mask or they're not wearing a mask, there's a pool of money set up for testing. I think Mr. Hickman knows the details more than I do at this moment, but there's a pool of money set up by the state for testing so that students don't have their education interrupted. Vis-a-vis, they get tested for, I believe it's 5 days.
So the idea is that the
Pool
state's
testing.
offering money to do pool testing where people take samples and they put them in and they test the sample. So like the whole data set, if it comes back negative, everybody moves on, they do it once a week. And then if that sample comes back positive, then they retest those individuals. And rather than quarantining individuals, there's recommendations that if you're exposed and you wear a mask through that process, but they're allowing those students to remain in school and test daily. So it's called a test in place. Rather than quarantining, being home for 2 weeks and missing school, they can continue to test every day. And if they keep getting negative tests, they can continue coming back to school. If they get a positive test, then they follow the procedures that are set in place. So like, I guess in that case, and again, this is, I guess, up for discussion, but I wouldn't be against, obviously, those exposed kids, but wearing a mask during those 5 days if they're in school. But that was the idea behind it. So there is money available from the state. And I think the only other thing, I think with that testing and the pool testing and stuff like that, I think it's just up to school and parents to talk to their kids that there are different reasons why people have to wear a mask and different reasons why people can't. If you look at the survey results, and we got a output from Mr. Lind of all the open response questions and everything else, there's just as many, if not more, people that had issues with their kids wearing masks last year as there were with kids or not wearing masks. And there's a lot of people that have issues One of the ones that I remember, somebody got some sort of rash around their face. Another individual that I read, they have a learning disability and they expect the person that they're learning from to be able to see their lips while they're learning. So they felt like they missed out on a lot because they couldn't actually understand what the teacher was saying or students were discussing and stuff like that. So I don't know, I guess I just go back to my opinion on, I think it should be up to, someone's gonna be upset with us no matter what. So we're not here to make everybody happy. I think that if you give them the option, everybody has the option to wear a mask or not wear a mask.
And I think that this committee, I apologize, sorry, go ahead,
No, that's
please.
okay.
No, please, feel free.
So I myself have put a lot of thought into it, and I stand behind that it's a parent's choice. I think we've been through this for a year. As parents, we know what to do. We are not saying that students won't wear masks. It is a choice with that. So the other thing is the data and the science. Like as a parent, I want to know the data. What is the criteria to mandate the masks? What is the criteria to remove the mask? How many variants will there be? These are children, young children being raised in masks that they don't know anything else. And I want everyone safe. I have children myself. All of the teachers have been vaccinated. We were first in line to be vaccinated, and we were told the vaccine would remove the mask. So what I'm saying is there's two things. There's a liberty of families to say yes or no. That comes from moms. That's what moms and dads do. They talk and they make a decision. There is the fact that we are a democratic country and we need to make these decisions and not have our rights taken away. What is the real science behind the masks? What is the data? What is the end mark of this? Where's the end game of this has been done? And then the other thing is requiring people to show proof of vaccination is not an American ideal. And I just think that at this point, a year in, that with no empirical evidence and true solid data, parents have the right to make the decision.
I will not have that. That will not happen in this room. If you do that again, you'll leave. That is not what this meeting is about. This is a meeting of the school committee. The public is invited. But you will not act out like that, or you'll leave. This is a meeting of the school committee. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this is a meeting of the school committee. Please.
Yeah, one discussion point I just wanted to bring up also is in the letter that we received from the Board of Health, they did mention that the Delta variant is taking over and numbers are skyrocketing, especially among children, but there was no data. I couldn't find it anywhere within our local community of how many school-age children have tested positive and with the Delta variant in the last several months. I couldn't find that data. I don't know that it exists, so.
Yes, Mr. Well, I think Mr. Canada wanted. Did you?
Well, we had earlier, we bypassed the letter from the Board of Health. I thought, since you just brought it up, well, actually I thought before you brought it up, but I feel like because it was correspondence, we're supposed to read it, we'd put it off to this point in the meeting so that we could.
I don't know that every correspondence that comes in, we have to actually read word for word, but we do mention that it came in, but feel free if you'd like to.
Okay.
That's fine.
Should I read the whole thing or should I read the
You can
bolded
read whatever you
recommendation?
feel is appropriate.
Okay, I'll read the bolded recommendation because Mr. Grant covered the under 12 stats and things like that. The North Brookfield, to that end, it is our recommendation that the North Brookfield schools require masks to be worn by all students and staff who have not been vaccinated, with exceptions as stipulated by DESE, which DESE is Department of Elementary and Second Education, and they do acknowledge kids who can't wear masks for whatever reason, be it health issue or learning issue or something like that. And the schools require proof of vaccination for those who wish to go maskless. Social distancing should continue to be maintained to the best of the ability of the staff and students when in the school buildings. These recommendations are in line with DESE, DPH, and the CDC. And then they're talking about revisiting at the midpoint of the school year when it's very possible that a larger proportion of the students have been vaccinated and case counts have reduced.
Thank you. Mr. Hickman?
So I've spent probably 20 or 30 hours looking up statistics to go off of your point earlier and reports for things. And I saw one that mentioned that they stopped reporting for younger children because there were so few cases. They stopped reporting and they said that they'll continue if it goes up. If you look at Massachusetts, we've had 16 hospitalizations in the last 2 weeks from ages 0 to 19, which is the age range that they gave. We had no deaths. There's approximately 1.1 million students in Massachusetts, or school-age students in Massachusetts. North Brookfield in the last 2 weeks has had 10 cases that it said. 215 tests, 4.6% positivity out of those. But if you look at, so between the mass.gov and the CDC website, they share COVID, pneumonia, and COVID. So if you have both of them at the time of hospitalization and also the time of death, and then they also have influenza. They have a lot better statistics for the United States as a whole compared to Massachusetts, et cetera. But for COVID, in terms of deaths for 0 to 17-year-olds, which was the data, they had somewhere between 1 and 4. Anything under 10, they stop report, or they don't give the number for. But based on the data, it was between 1 and 4. We had 10 deaths in that same time frame, which was from January 1st of 2020 up until August 14th of 2021. We've had 10 pneumonia deaths in that time. So just pneumonia alone is greater than COVID. And then for pneumonia and COVID and also just influenza, there was somewhere between 1 and 4. The one that I found that was kind of like the biggest, I guess, number was pneumonia in that same time frame across the United States was 865 just for pneumonia from dying. And COVID deaths were only 361 for school students from 0 to 17, based on the CDC website. And I'd be more than happy to share the link to that data to anybody that wants it. But I guess my thought is we haven't been doing this for the flu. We haven't been doing it for other things. So if we're gonna vote to mandate some sort of mask, I feel like we're at the point where we're mandating it for the rest of our life, because that stuff's gonna be around forever. And the data there actually backs that pneumonia and influenza are more dangerous for school-age children at this point than COVID is. So I would have to say that I agree with the parents. I think there's detriments to wearing a mask. I think there's positives to possibly wearing a mask as well. But I don't think the data backs us to make that decision at this point, which is why I made my recommendation.
Just one follow-up to that. So the 10 in North Brookfield in the last 2 weeks, we don't know if those were school-age children.
No, we know that it's all ages.
Yes, so
that
the
data.
letter from the Board of Health mentioned a rise in Delta variant cases. So there's no data for our town?
So you can't go down to, based on the 2 websites, and again, I tried staying away from random websites that report statistics. I stayed with the mass.gov, which was the Massachusetts data, and the CDC. They don't break it down to the actual towns based on age. All they did was Massachusetts as a whole by age, and it was, again, in terms of, they actually, I could only find the deaths for that too.
Just one last thing. So,
Yeah.
and Tim, I know I agree with you on the some with no masks. With masks, there's a potential for bullying. But what I'd be more concerned with, honestly, is those kids who are parents who file an exception, and they're in a more vulnerable position potentially anyway, depending on if there's a disability or whatever. And now they're the only ones in the school not wearing masks. I think we're setting them up for potential worst bullying. If there's only 3 kids in the whole school, that would be a concern of mine as well. So I agree with you on the concern for that, so.
So I would like to just, not from the chair's position, but from the school committee position, say, I fully believe that Mr. Lynn and our 2 principals are gonna handle any kind of bullying situation as they do with anything else. When I was a young child, we were dirt poor, and my parents were concerned about us going to school and being bullied for not being able to wear the coolest shoes, right? So, we were able to get through that, and I think that that our administrators are going to ensure that our students understand that whether it's a choice of the parents or a choice of the child, and I would hope that it's a choice of the parent, not the choice of the child, but that these are choices that are being made for them, not necessarily by them. And so therefore, you know, they're not students, I mean, no student should be picked on, but for anything. And I don't see this as being any different than that. So with that, if I could get I think we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion from the committee?
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
This is probably not relevant right now, but it'll be relevant with whatever the state says. Massachusetts is the most heavily vaccinated state in the country, or one of the most, like
Yes.
top 5. Our town's at 59%. 49% of 12 to 15-year-olds have received at least one dose. And 44% of 16 to 19. The groups that are doing the worst percentage-wise are the 20 to 30 and the 30 to mid-40s or 49 or something like that. So this conversation, personally, I feel differently if this conversation is in a town that's 85% or 90% vaccinated, which we have a lot of kids in town, and we're kind of the gatekeepers of getting, because we're the ones going to work in other towns and things like that. And if the state is doing what they're saying they're gonna do, a lot of these regulations are gonna be based on the number of children, or students rather, because they're high school kids, yeah, are vaccinated, based on what I read. So whatever we decide now, if the state decides something different tomorrow, the vaccine, which is now, the Pfizer one was approved today by the FDA, that's gonna be the determining factor on how we move forward from this and avoid having to talk about this ever again, hopefully.
Just one thing to clarify, and again, I'm not trying to argue whatsoever, I think conversation is good, but in Massachusetts, 74% of the people on the Cape that got COVID were all vaccinated too. So again, I don't feel like the data backs up. I know we can't argue with the state, but I don't feel like the data that's being reported on those cases is backing up the recommendations.
Okay.
That's all.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion by the committee? All those, I'm sorry, the public participation's over. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? So moved. We are moving on now to the, I apologize, I had to restart my computer. I have no idea why it broke. Focus discussion group, focus group discussion. So, Mr. Hickman requested that we add the agenda item to today's meeting. This is a discussion only item. This is not something that we're up for vote for tonight. It's just to get for the members of the committee to hear Mr. Hickman's idea and to have the ability to ask questions to get to a place where we might be able to have a vote next month. So, Mr. Hickman?
So prior to being on the North Brookfield School Committee, I had put something on Facebook to get information from mainly parents in the district and taxpayers of concerns that they had, questions that they had, to try to compile a list of information to bring to the school committee and ask for essentially a response. Prior to, I'd say this year, I probably knew about 15 people in North Brookfield, and probably 10 of them are my wife's family. So I ended up getting 40 responses, which I thought was good at the time. But now that I am in this position, I think that it's important to have everybody's voices heard. So I haven't shared that information yet, but it will be grouped in with this concept. But what I'd like to do, and I've done research on different schools and kind of different things that they've done. I want to implement essentially some sort of annual meeting with a variety of different groups. So one day we could come in, and I don't mean we, but whoever's in charge of this, can come in and meet with maybe all of Mrs. Priestley's students. Anyone who wants to come down and say something. Good, bad, whatever it might be. Same thing at the high school, same thing with parents. I'd like to also have a focus group made up of faculty that want to voice something. I think during this process, it's important not to have the administrative administrators of the school involved, and I don't know if that's an option. But I know as a teacher in my school, if my boss asked me like, hey, what don't you like about what's going on here? I'm not gonna volunteer to be the first person to talk. So I think it would be important to have somebody that people feel comfortable going to. I don't know if we would have a different head of each one of the focus groups or something like that. And then I think it's important that we do this every year. So it could be something where we collect information, we come back, we discuss it, we come up with a plan for maybe anything that we think is a priority. And then I think there's also probably misconceptions that people have about the school that maybe aren't true. So this would be an opportunity for us to say, actually, that's not what's going on, here's this. So I think it's just important for transparency purposes to have everybody have a platform and a place to come and have their voices heard. And then the following year, we can present back that data. Here's what you said, here's how we prioritized it, here are the actions that we took to fix it. What are your concerns this year? What are your comments? And just keep people involved. And I think that with the struggle with the budget, or not the struggle, but maybe the controversy with the budget this year, I think if everybody kind of has an opportunity and knows what's going on, I just think that process would be a lot easier moving forward too. Because people would know what we're doing to try to make the improvements in the school and stuff like that. So I guess my only question is, how do we go about planning this? Or I guess I should say first, is everybody okay with us doing this? Are we allowed to do this? And then how do we go about planning it, seeing we're not allowed to talk to each other other than once a month?
Well, we are allowed to talk to you.
Well, other than
Right.
we're not allowed to talk
We're not-
in terms
we're not
of
ta-
two
right,
people.
Right, because open meeting
Yeah.
rules and regulations.
So I guess I don't know how we would go
So
about
you do all the
doing that.
legwork and then come
Yeah,
back to us
you
next
do all the
month.
legwork, you come back to us next month,
So-
that's how it went.
The only- I wouldn't mind doing that, but it defeats the whole purpose of what I'm trying to do, because I think
No, I
everybody
agree
else
with
should
you,
have their
Chris.
voice be heard.
Yeah,
So-
no, I agree with you.
And even in the
So-
process of how it's done.
So I think for me, for the agenda item for today, it was an opportunity for the rest of the committee to hear what Mr. Hickman was thinking, and for questions or concerns to come up. And I would open this beyond the committee, but to also the administrators that are here for their thoughts. Because the whole point, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole point is to make the entire system better, right? Better for our kids, better for our staff, better for our administrators. We want people to recognize the value of this educational system. And so listen, everybody knows there are things that we can do better. Every day, right? There are things we can do better. So this is an opportunity for the committee to hear it directly, if I'm understanding from Mr. Hickman's thought process, what it is that maybe we could do better. Now, that doesn't mean, I want to be very clear about this, that does not mean that anything that comes to us, we would do without consulting the administrative staff of the school system, right? It just protects the anonymity of the person who's stepping up and saying, hey, the textbook we're using is 30 years old, right? So whatever the case may be, right? So I want to put it in context of what we're trying to do. We're trying to see from the front lines, what is it that we're missing as an organization? And what can we do to make it better for everybody, Mr. Canada? Sorry.
I can't go without pointing out that Mr. Hickman just proposed a focus group.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
We are doing
He
a
actually
focus
did.
group to
Can
figure out how to
Can we
make
have
focus
this focus group right now, talk about how we're gonna do focus groups? You're absolutely right. Good call.
I like it.
I think,
so-
just to, I guess, shorten what you were just saying, the idea would be unbiased data collection, something where people feel comfortable saying whatever they want. And then just presenting that to everybody, administrators, the committee, and maybe talking about, hey, this seems like a common thing that people are concerned about. Can we fix it? Can we make it better?
And we did that, just so you understand, we did that with our surveys that we sent out, right? We got literally out of the, I don't know, 60.
350 responses or something?
Well, I was just gonna talk about the staff. We had 60, 70 people who responded.
70-ish, yeah.
And I would say at least 15% of those folks gave, because Mr. Lynn gave them the opportunity, is there anything you want to tell the committee prior to opening the school year Is there anything one of them wrote us a novel that
Yeah.
War and Peace would have been jealous of. No, I'm kidding to whoever wrote that. It was actually well-written and very well stated, but somebody took the time and actually gave us a real document of what they really thought coming forward for the school year. And that's kind of, I think, to Mr. Hickman's point, what we're looking for, right? Be open with us, be honest with us. We're gonna be open and honest with you, I swear we are. We're gonna be open as much as we can, because there are regulations that require what we can and we can't share. But as much as we can be, we are gonna be open and honest with you, be open and honest with us. What are the things that we're missing that you see on a daily basis that we need to think about? When we went for our walk today, and sorry to jump on your discussion point, but today, when we went on a walk, there were lots of things that were pointed out to us that were great. I wanna know the things that aren't great. I mean, not that I don't wanna know the things that are great, because there are a lot of things about the school system that aren't great. But tell me about the things that are come back to bite me in a year from now, because we didn't know about it, right? Or tell me about the things that you struggle with. Like Mr. Shaw, when I said the hedges, and he went, yep, right? So tell me about those things, right? Because I wanna know, what can we do to make it better for you and for the people who work here on a daily basis? Because I don't think it matters, maybe it does, and I apologize to anybody in the community it does. If it matters that we have hedges along this side of the building, right? If it really does to you, I apologize to you, maybe it does. I personally would rather see wildflowers growing up against the building, because it's more representative of what happens in the town of North Brookfield. Me personally, that's me. But that's the kind of thing I think Mr. Hickman's talking about. Tell us about those things, those pain points that you have that we could do something about, because we wanna do that we wanna do that for the benefit of the kids, we wanna do that for the benefit of the community. That's what we wanna do. So, I don't know if there's any other questions or
No,
thoughts?
and I would just say, like, I think there's also misconceptions. Like, we were walking around today, this is my first time ever stepping foot in that other building, it's beautiful. And people always, somebody mentioned that, there's a lot of misconceptions of the high school, and I think that here's the opportunity for people to ask and say, hey, what are they doing over there? Or what's going on? And we can share that information in those groups. And I guess ultimately the idea is to increase enrollment. Like, that's more kids, more money, in my opinion, and I think that's what it comes down to. So I think that this might be a good way to make everything as transparent as possible, try to fix things that could use improvements, like any business, and I don't know, I guess just make things better.
And on your statement about transparency, that's why we instituted those other two committees, right? So there's a lot of talk in the town about what's going on with curriculum in this community, right? So we instituted a curriculum committee, and they're going to go through and they're gonna have public meetings, and you're welcome to attend, right? And they're gonna talk about what's going on in the curriculum, because we need, as a committee, we need to have a more intimate depth of knowledge, because we represent you, that's what we do. We represent you. So if we're representing you, we need to have a better depth of knowledge of what's going on in the curriculum. We need to not come to town meeting and scare you with, hey, we need $200,000 to fix the roof on the building over there. That's why the Facilities and Grounds Committee is there. We need to have this information out in public. And so they're gonna have public meetings, and you're gonna be invited through the normal course of open meeting, and you're welcome to come and have your voices heard there. But we want to be as transparent a board as we possibly can be with you, because we need your help. It's not for any other reason. I mean, it's not for a reason you elected us, but we need your help. If we're gonna make this school as successful as it can be, we can't do it by dividing everybody. We have to do it as a unified town moving forward, right? So that's what we need. And so this is one methodology. The other methodology is our constant communication. I don't meet with anybody where I don't share it with the board. Mr. Lind is going to make sure that anything that gets posted through the town or anything else is posted on the North Brookfield School page of Facebook, so that you get the official word. It's going out that way, right? So you all have the information. And then you have 5 representatives right here that you get to ask any questions you want of. Any one of us. That's what you hired us for, right? So I think this is just the methodology that Ms. Hickman's put forward for the rest of us to have a better understanding of what's going on in the school district, get us more intimately involved. And I personally think it's a great idea, but that's not today's vote.
Yeah,
So
no, I'd just like to
so the
know,
point-
am I wasting my time moving forward,
Right.
trying to come up with a bunch of details on how we could go about doing this for the next meeting?
So what I would say to you is, because we cannot, as a group, right, so what I would say to you is, because we cannot, as a group, have a discussion without being in an open meeting, if members of this committee have a question or a concern or a thought that they didn't think of tonight, please direct them directly to Mr. Hickman. He will answer your question, and at the next meeting, which is September
Yep.
ish. I'm looking at the superintendent, he's like, why did you do that to me? No, it's fine. At our September meeting, we'll hold a vote, and we'll vote to either authorize or. 18th, September 18th. We'll either vote to authorize these focus groups or we won't, okay? Does that make sense, everybody?
Thank you.
Okay. Now I can't see without him, so. Oh, the next item on the agenda is school committee. I mean, it's school mascot, school committee. Oh my God, it's so late. School mascot, so there was a request by Ms. Omasta to put on the agenda the school mascot discussion. Ms. Omasta.
So, taking the segue of unified town moving forward, and the 401 people that voted in May to keep the American Indian Chief as the official town mascot, I have visited the Historical Society twice. If you have not gone down there, I encourage you to do that. It is one of the most amazing museums. The first mention of the Indian mascot appeared in the publication in North Brookfield in 1956, giving us a 65-year history. And because there's no state law currently banning these mascots, and we're moving into regionalization, I want to make a motion to rescind the vote to retire the Indian mascot.
We have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion from the board?
Yes.
Sir?
Well, I'm the only one left that voted to retire the mascot, and I think that there is a misconception that we were in some way voting it down and declaring that the town itself was racist for having the mascot. I do not feel that way at all, and I can't speak for everyone else that was on the board, but in speaking with them, we received a petition. None of us came up with the idea. We received a petition from a group of former town residents, school members, and alumni that were concerned about this. We put it off till after the school started. At that point, we had a public forum, where we said we were going to have a public forum. We then brought in native tribes representatives from across the state to explain to us what it was that they found offensive with the mascot. At that point, we also had an opportunity for anyone that had a problem with the mascot to address it, and nobody did. The implication is not that the town itself was racist. It wasn't whoever came up with the idea. It was that we had a group of people standing before us, well, virtually, because we weren't allowed to meet in person, standing in front of us, or sitting in their homes, telling us over the computer all of the things that were wrong with it. And there was nothing that I could come up with besides the standard arguments that it's tradition and it was meant to honor them, which is a valid way to look at it.
It's absolute.
And the problem is that I had a group of people who we were ostensibly honoring through this mascot tell me that they did not feel that way. And I did not feel that I was in any position to argue with them on that, because I am not Native American. I do not have any Native American heritage as far as I know. I'm not Canadian, even though my last name is Canada. And I didn't feel that it was my place to bring that up at that time, and that I just couldn't back up. That wasn't the fight that I was willing to get into, because I didn't feel that I could win it. And that's where it was. Plus, financially speaking, we looked at the fact that we could have gotten a free company to rebrand, and it seemed like the way the winds were, I think the whole state's been distracted by COVID, which is why it's not a law yet. But we thought maybe we could get ahead of it and get something for free that we could do, and then just gradually deal with it later as things came up. So it was what we perceived to be the right thing to do at the time. It's not a referendum or our thoughts on the town itself or the history of the town. I had to call my father and tell him that I just voted down the mascot that he graduated from. I said, Dad, I just ruined your heritage. I voted down the Indian, we retired it. And he said, oh, all right. And I called my mom, actually I called my mom first, and said, Mom, well, she's closer.
Move them.
Phone works that way.
She can come get me if I don't call her first. But, so I did all that, and I told them what I had done, why I did it, and it's not meant to be anything about the town itself or the people in the town, because this is a great little town. But it just seemed like the right thing to do, and at the same time, not a war that I could win, or any of us could argue reasonably against them and show them why we needed to keep the mascot that they found offensive. That's all.
Understood. So,
I just feel like I should share an opinion if we're gonna be voting, so people can understand where I'm coming from. This isn't personal to me. I didn't graduate from North Brookfield. If the town wants the mascot or doesn't want the mascot, I feel like I'm here to represent the people of the town. So I think that I would like to be, I know there was talks about, like the regionalization, and if that happens, we're switching to something else at one of the meetings. I agree that I think it makes sense to wait, because I think to have the Indian mascot all over the place and to be called the Bobcats, I just think makes us look kind of funny, to be honest. I think if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it. And I think that my vote on this is gonna be based off of the town saying that they wanna keep the Indian mascot. So I just wanted to share my opinion so you guys know what I think.
any other thoughts? Concerns? So I'd like to share mine as a graduate of North Brookville High School and a proud Indian. I too have spoken with people who are of Native American bloodlines and showed them what we use for our mascot, the Indian head that we have. And those folks that I've shared it with did not share the comments that were shared with you. And I understand that. You were in a situation where, because of COVID, or not because of COVID, the town didn't show up to say, no, we want to stay here, we don't want to stay here, right? I'm not saying, for me personally, not chairman, me personally, Ron Ryle, guy lives down the street. I'm not saying that the Indian has to be the mascot of North Brookfield for the rest of our lives. It may not be, right? Let's get through the regionalization first. Let's figure out whether we're doing that first or not, right? Once we figure that out, then, as a town, let's get together and figure out whether the mascot of the Indian chief with his headdress on really represents what we want for our town. And if it doesn't represent our students, if it doesn't represent our town, then let's do something about it. But if it does, then we can talk about that. But I think we have, again, as a town, we have to make that decision. So that's my 2 cents. So, if there's any other conversation from the committee?
Are you taking public comment on this?
No public comment was earlier in the evening, sir, sorry. All in favor of rescinding the vote to make to retire the Indian mascot? All in favor? Opposed?
A big night tonight.
You're fine. You're fine. Okay, so that's a school mascot, and then there was another motion?
So, I'd like to make a motion to rescind the vote to approve school policy CN mascots and other identifiers.
So I have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
So that,
Can you repeat that, I'm sorry?
so this is a motion to rescind the vote to approve the school policy.
So this was a policy that was set in place in January to set up the guidelines for assigning what the school mascot would be. Again, it's not that there's anything wrong with the policy, but because we rescinded the mascot, it wouldn't fit within that policy statement now.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So there's
Do we have to vote on that first, though?
well, they didn't vote on the policy before they voted on the mascot, so the mascot vote was in November, the policy vote was in January.
No, that's fine.
I'm just following what was done in the previous school committee, so. I have a motion on the floor to rescind the policy, CN.
School mascots.
School mascot and other identifiers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on the matter? All those.
So this is, wait, so this
Sorry.
is
The policy.
the policy that says how the new mascot is chosen?
Correct, so this would make it go back to the previous policy.
And everything would start over again. if
Start-
we were
right,
gonna do
start
this
it.
again.
What was the previous policy?
I have no idea.
I don't think there was a previous, I think we had to.
Was
we had
there a
to make
previous
this
policy?
So the policy wasn't required because we hadn't retired the mascot at that point. This is
Okay.
coming to me as I'm going through this. So we had to make the policy to figure out how to go about getting a new mascot, which involved input from the town. There was a whole
Yep.
committee made and lots of stuff talked about it. I wasn't involved in that committee, but that's why we had made that policy. So would we have had to vote the policy out first?
Well,
I
again,
guess it doesn't matter.
Well, just,
But I think the policy itself is fine.
well, the only question is, does the mascot now meet the qualifications of that policy is the
Well,
issue.
if we voted to nullify the vote to change the mascot,
Yep.
then the mascot never ever changed, and the policy can remain because it's a valid way to find a new mascot.
So is that policy only for finding, because I think the policy is fine.
As I read the policy, when you change the mascot, it has to, you have to follow these steps. You form a committee made of such and such people from the community. It outlines the procedures involved to make a new mascot. So if we've
Mr.
now nullified that original
I
vote.
apologize, I'm sorry. Mr. Lynn seems to have the policy up in front of him, is that correct? Is it with regard to new policy, a new mascot, or is it with
So let me
regard?
read it so the committee can hear it. The North Brookfield Public School District recognizes the need to express school spirit through the selection of a mascot, team name, colors, and other school identifiers such as yearbooks, names of newspapers and other publications, names for activities and events, school songs and slogans. The following provides for these activities. Selecting a mascot, team name, and school colors, as well as other school identifiers, shall be respectful of diverse cultural values and reflect a positive school image. 2, the school mascot, team name, colors, and other school identifiers must be unique and cannot be a duplication of a professional, corporate, international, national, local mascot, name and colors, nor other copyright identifiers. The school mascot is defined as a symbol, character, name or logo that should represent a school in a positive manner with an emphasis on expression of school unity and pride. And number 4, team names, school colors, and other identifiers shall be selected on the basis of a positive reflection of the school. Lastly, responsibility in the selection of the school mascot, team name, colors, school identifiers will be by a vote of a committee comprised of the principal or his or her designee, 2 to 3 staff members, 3 students, 2 to 3 parents, 1 to 2 community members. This committee will gather information through student forums, community forums, surveys, questionnaires, meeting with other local organizations. All proposed school mascot, team names, colors, and school identifier selections and/or changes will be presented to the superintendent for review within 3 months of the forming of that committee. The superintendent will then make recommendations to the school committee for final review and approval. So it's really.
So it does kind of sound like it's with regard to picking a new one as opposed to an old one. So what I think if I'm okay from the chair, I would suggest that we table that motion until next month. And maybe our policy committee can get together and look at that policy and make sure that there's no conflict with the vote that was just taken. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So are you okay with tabling that?
I am.
So can I, motion to table? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to table the discussion on the policy for the mascot.
A second.
All in favor? Thank you. Co-principal contract amendment? Mr. Lind, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me just take the note, sorry.
Yeah, no, so I can do this. Mr. Lind has offered his resignation as the co-principal because there is a principal now, interim principal, So we have a letter from Mr. Lin with his resignation as the co-principal. Can I have a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you. We have an amendment for the North Brookville Elementary School Principal Contract for the Professional Development Title Grants. As discussed earlier, Mr. Lind is recommending the adjustment to create a stipend of $11,500 for the North Brookfield Elementary School Principal for conducting the business of the Professional Development and Title Grants. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to accept.
In a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll just say, just to be clear for everybody else, because I know people probably want to know. I know at other schools, if you take on the responsibility of what Ms. Priestley is offering to do, and you add AP and you add teacher evaluations, which I'm guessing you do anyways, it's an entirely new position at a lot of schools. So in my opinion, I think 11,500 is completely,
Reasonable.
completely reasonable. Just for clarification on what I think.
Any other comments on the committee? So all those in favor? Opposed? We have the approval of donations. There's a $550 in memorial for Dylan Dupree to the Athletics Department, and an AED from the Josh Thibodeau Helping Hearts Foundation. Mr. Superintendent, any comment?
No, we receive occasionally donations. They are listed monthly. The memorandum of Dylan Dupree is a former student with the athletic department and Mrs. Floyd, and it's much appreciated. The money was sent to the Sports Boosters Club, and they had since forwarded to the athletic department to go into our athletic revolving account. And Mrs. Floyd, our lead nurse and nurse of junior senior high, approached the Josh Thibodeau Helping Hearts Foundation, and out of, I think, there were any number of donations, and I think they granted 12 of them, including hers, to add another AED outside for our athletic fields, which is a huge, wonderful thing, because they're not needed until they're needed, and then they save a life, so it's wonderful. Thank you for Mrs. Floyd and to all the donations.
So can I get a motion to accept the donations?
I'll move to accept the donations.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry, any discussion? Sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. There is no executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Is that your
Yes,
second?
sorry.
Sorry, I missed one.
Count 'em
All right, thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for joining us tonight.
I'll take